amplifying the piano at all right now?
Say that again?
Are you sending the piano to the house at all right now? Yeah, we should not. We should have no piano in the house, please.
The reading desk. Provide water for the worship leaders. Thank you very much, Terry. The preacher needs a glass of water at the reading desk and in the pulpit. Check. 15 to 20 minutes before the service, light the tea light at the center of the reading desk and at the candelabras. Place the small candle lighter on top of the rail at the reading desk for use with the chalice lighting. We've actually changed that practice because I found having something sitting on top of the rail to be messy. So we now have it attached to the inside of the board. Reading desk mic is here, and I'm just put it up and over a little bit because we will have other readers. And they'll be reading from my text, which I have here, which I'm not going to read, but I will share with us right now the responsive reading. We remember in the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. How are we doing up there?
I think we're good. Do you feel all right, Johnny?
Okay. Okay.
just like leaning and then maybe like yelled at by her.
Oh, yes, no.
Okay.
I moved him.
Here's what did.
I just wanted to mention I'm doing something I don't usually do in this worshiping memorials, which is a moment of silence.
Here.
Right, and so I'm going to just invite that, and then I'm going to sit down.
And when you sit down, I'll start playing something.
No, I'm
No.
going to invite the silence and sit down, and then you like count to 100,
And that's
and then start playing.
sounds good.
And then when you're done, then they will get up.
Makes sense?
But I don't want to stand there and hold the silence.
That makes total sense.
Okay. And I'll leave Terry right now.
Please rise.
Good afternoon and welcome to Unity Church-Unitarian. I'm Reverend Laura Cowton, Unity's Minister of Congregational Care, and I bid you all welcome here in person and online as we gather. We gather to celebrate and remember the life of Anne Maclin, embracing her memory with stories and song and honesty and mourning and love. We are mindful that there are many faith traditions that inform our individual journeys here today, and we hold in gratitude the foundations of love and service that those traditions hold in common. In beloved community, we enter into a circle of grief and memory and hope for a time. All are welcome here. May you find this a blessing today. Please join Anne's family for a reception in the parish hall following the service. And in keeping with the Unitarian Universalist tradition practiced here at Unity Church, we light a chalice flame. The flame symbolizes and reminds us of our own living, of life, the light of human life, which is sacred. It is sacred in its being born, and it is sacred in its living, and it is sacred in its dying. In the presence of life, we say no to death. In the presence of death, let us say yes to life. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join me in reading the responsive reading that is in your program. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and the chill of the winter, we remember them. In the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. Thank you. Anne Maclin has died, and the lives of those who knew and loved her have been irreparably changed. But let us not forget an equally powerful truth. Anne Maclin has lived, and her life touched and changed every person here today. And although we do not claim to know what happens to us after we die, we do know that death itself comes to us all. as does grief. And there's no one right way to grieve. It's not a straight path. Grief knows its own time and its own rhythm, and sometimes it surprises us. Do not judge yourself or those around you, for we each grieve in our own way, and every new grief often brings up old griefs. And this is the way of it. We live through the early agony of loss. Over time, we do arrive to some sense of peace. But grief doesn't ever really go away, and our lives don't ever really return to what they were before. Instead, time teaches us to weave each loss into our lives. And despite the pain, we learn to let the blessings come and recognize how we can become stronger, more compassionate, more whole, more wise, when we let mourning have its way with us. Grief doesn't go away. We grow around it, and through it, and because of it. And so in this way, grief is a blessing. In this way, our joys and our sorrows are always woven fine. So we share in these rituals of our lives as we are today in community, as reminders that we are not alone. We are not alone in grieving, and we are not alone in sharing the stories and the songs, the breaths and the rhythms of our lives as they were meant to be, with others. And though we are today in the presence of death, it is life that calls us together today. Annie's life, and the life that we all share. So let us grieve as we will, and we will. And yet, in our grieving, let us also celebrate. We celebrate the unique and precious life that belonged to Anne Maclin. And as we approach this time together of memories and words and song and music, let us release ourselves each for a few moments into silence, for your own reflection, your own prayer, your own breathing, your own memory.
I'm Annie's mom. Earlier this year, I was shopping for something to wear, brighter than my usual beige. Annie gave me a thumbs up on this jacket I'm wearing today. With great joy, we welcomed Ann Hall Maclin into our lives on September 6, 1990. A few months earlier, we had settled into our home on Goodrich Avenue, a childhood of playing, neighborhood children, riding tricycles, then bicycles, chalked sidewalks, and games like hide and seek. A large family room on 3rd floor for watching movies, practicing cartwheels, and sleepovers with friends. Just a few of my many memories of Ann follow. As a toddler, Annie's favorite food was pasta with pesto sauce. I remember how funny it seemed to smell garlic when I kissed her goodnight. Her favorite doggy outfit that she had to wear every day. Her early ear for music. Annie in the child seat of a shopping cart, hearing the store's muzak and saying, "That's Beethoven." And later, learning piano, not fondly, but drums, viola, and guitar enthusiastically. Creating CD playlists for our birthdays, Mother's and Father's Days. Annie's art, how quickly stick figure drawings became people seated in chairs and showing me, "It's only a Z, Mom." And throughout the years, Ann playing soccer, swim and dive teams, dance and gymnastics. Annie's love, care, and playfulness with our family dog Lily, and later her dog Finn. Ann's self-motivation, applying herself in academic studies and achieving excellence. Her intellect in conversations. Of course, there were times of disagreement with parental rules. After Ann and another underage friend got tattoos, Ann hid the small star on her ankle by wearing socks or strategically crossing her ankles when we were with her. When we saw it, we could only chuckle about her long and all of her efforts to hide it. Annie's sense of humor, her laughter over a character's comment or situation in comedy shows like Seinfeld or Curb Your Enthusiasm. Her love of cooking, sharing recipes and cooking techniques with her sisters. Annie's dad is our family's travel agent. Alan plans so many family travel adventures and solo trips with each of his daughters. These adventures always included at least one hilarious situation that Ann could recount perfectly, bringing laughter to our family. I have memory boxes for each daughter. In addition to selected artwork, I have the journals they were required to write in their grade school years. Maybe this journaling practice laid the groundwork for the handmade cards I received on special occasions. In reviewing these recently, I have been deeply touched by Ann's words. She shared her heart, her experiences, and her appreciation for our mother-daughter bond. Because I did not work outside the home, I think I considered them a little bit like my job reviews. Messages thanking me for French braiding her hair, supporting her Beanie Baby craze, and always encouraging her. In some, acknowledging a rough spot that we had resolved, and a few with promises to be better about cleaning up her room. In one card, Annie wrote, "I said it once and I'll say it again. You are such a great mother, you deserve to be paid $1 billion. On so many days, I felt fully compensated. These cards are keepsakes, gifts I treasure. Annie was a tender soul, easily moved to love and sensitive. In times of hurt feelings or sadness, her tender heart carried her pain. In grieving her, I listened to music. I find comfort in these words from a Faith Hill song. In my dreams, I'll always see you soar above the sky. In my heart, there'll always be a place for you for all my life. I'll keep a part of you with me, and everywhere I am, there you'll be. I hope the photos in the parish hall give you a greater sense of Anne than I am able to convey in my remarks today. When I look at Anne's whole life, I see a wealth of happiness. We celebrate her life, the joy she gave us, and her unique personal gifts. Loving you always, Annie, Mom.
Many of you know our dad is generous in love. He's also generous in tears, in his word a crier, so it's my honor to bring his words today. Dear Anne, I'm not quite sure how to begin this letter to you, hon, so I'll just start with some fun memories. Some of my favorite memories come from your hand-drawn birthday and Father's Day cards to me, usually beginning with something like, I'm so lucky to have you as my dad, then calling me Ticket Man, or Best Grandpa and Best Grand Dog Man. Then continuing. I still remembered when we played pitch and catch and how you would come down to school to throw the ball for our softball club. Dear Mom and Dad, thank you guys so much for the drum set. I love it. You guys are going to need earplugs big time, aren't you? I'm so blessed to have such a wonderful, generous, hilarious daddy-o. Thanks for letting us laugh at and with you. That, of course, brings to mind our Revenge of the Mummy ride at Universal Studios, where I closed my eyes and gripped the handrail in terror, and you laughed uncontrollably. You also got a good laugh at my outfit of plaid shorts and a striped shirt when that was the only clean clothes available for our flight home from Florida. And this from your card from summer camp when you were 10 years old. Hey, Dito, how's it going? A lot of the kids are really nice. Some of them are annoying. So far, camp is fun, even though it's only been a couple of hours. Love, Anne. Then there are the precious photographs of our family and travel together. Nothing makes me smile as much. Seeing you and me canoeing together at the Boundary Waters and Jasper National Park, wearing your new Norwegian sweater on our trip to Norway while hugging Tess, Mom, and me, and that large troll statue. Whale watching off Cape Cod, San Diego, and the Puget Sound. Even recalling you getting mad at me on our trip to London, just the two of us, when I woke you up early after jet lag, but then you quickly forgiving me after we walked past paparazzi into a Hyde Park hotel where Angelina Jolie had just checked in. I love the family photos of you playing with big sisters Molly and Tess as a little girl, and years later, standing by them at their weddings, and later still holding their children, your nieces and nephews, always with a big smile on your face. And that same beautiful smile when you were learning to ride a bike, building sandcastles in Florida, and water skiing at the cabin. I remember so well your sensitivity, your sense of humor, and your many acts of kindness. Graduating from Central High School and University of Wisconsin-Madison with high honors at each, always a bit of a perfectionist, who else would sign up for a tough college course on a pass-fail basis and then earn an A in the course anyway, because that is just what you did. A full life ahead, a good job at Land O'Lakes and talking about your interest in art and graphic design. But then an unfortunate car accident just 20 months after college graduation. Not your fault at all, but life isn't fair sometimes. Chronic pain and sleeplessness ensued and never went away, and eventually depression deepened. You and Mom and I talked about the things over the years, but it's still a difficult thing to understand. Mom and I had many good times with you after the accident, though, both while you were living in San Diego and back here in St. Paul. You were so happy that you were able to adopt your rescue dog, Finn, in San Diego. You and I played fetch with him whenever we went to the beach, you lugging his toys and beaming. Then he accompanied us on our lengthy drive back here from San Diego when COVID hit in April 2020. The roads were practically deserted except for big semis and your little Prius filled with your essential belongings. Finn's still doing well, by the way. Mom and I take good care of him. He misses you and loves you. He's had a good life, and you are the reason why. Of course, going with you to concerts, the National, Bon Iver, the Black Keys, Indigo Girls, Green Day, was one of my all-time favorite activities. And I still listen to the many birthday CDs you made for me, artists you noticed I liked, and others you wanted me to hear. Thanks. I am learning slowly to live with the sadness of your absence. To quote from an article in the Alliance of Hope, your loss is embedded in your soul, but happiness is there too. Love is there, sadness is there. Joy is there, hope is there. All of the emotions are there together. You can feel them one at a time, and you can feel them all at the same time. I know that you tried so hard and did so much. I appreciate that. Know that I miss you and love you. I will always love you. Thank you for being my daughter. Forever. Love, Dad.
Unity Church-Unitarian has a tradition of offering what we call a collage of voices. It's a collection of memories shared by some who knew Anne, which illuminate many facets of her life. A life like a multifaceted jewel, which holds and reflects many different stories. Through these stories, the spirit of Annie's life will always remain, and today, through these stories, we will all get to know her a little better. From Anne's sister Tess, who filled a small mason jar with memories and reflections on Anne and gave them to her parents. Eating coconut shrimp from the same restaurant multiple times on one trip to Mexico. Being outside in the yard on a swing set at our home on Goodrich Avenue. Laughing while our rental car was flying over speed bumps in Mexico. Anne's smile. She has a very memorable smile. From the crooked tooth as a kid to the genuine, joyful smile we saw at times as an adult. going to the Mucky Duck restaurant in Florida. Her ability to recognize music of all genres. Earth conscious, helping everyone recycle correctly. Christmas Eve slumber parties. The smile she would have around her nieces and nephews. Drinking the best hot chocolate in Belgium. And visiting Anne working at the Grand Old Creamery. And staying awake, but managing to laugh about all the black flies on our camping trip to the Boundary Waters. Her laughter when reciting a favorite movie quote or a scene. Selling pop and drinks at Grand Old Days. And Kennedy's words to Grammy and Grandpa on leaving the playground. I love you, Auntie Anne. From Auntie Nan. Annie was a kind and loving person and had a wonderful sense of humor. So many times she and Kira were falling down laughing for some silly thing that was said or done. And Jean and I had great trips to San Francisco and New York City with the girls, boating at the cabin and playing dress up, coming down the grand staircase at their home New Year's Eve with the cousins, and so much more. From Carol Humpage. Anne knew love, comfort, and beauty in her life. From Nick Campbell. I remember as kids growing up, playing as cousins whenever we got together, or just hanging out, watching movies, and swimming and boating. From Mike, a neighbor. On a winter day, when there was so much snow, Anne was helping dig out the alley. Shovels in hand, Annie made a bright impression in just a moment. I remember the uncommon warmth in her greeting. Anne's cousin, Lara, remembers laughing with Anne at her spot-on imitation of Julia Child. From Bob and Linda Kloss. Anne and our daughter Lauren were about 4 or 5 and decided to follow the Star of Bethlehem. They bundled up and Jean packed them snacks as they headed out, followed by Alan and their dog. They made it a couple blocks past Victoria before they turned around to go home. And Jean would push all the furniture in the living room to the edge so Anne and Lauren could be figure skaters on the carpet. It's not clear if either girl attempted a Salchow jump. My guess is they didn't. I don't recall any lamps being broken. From Chris Lakesmith. Anne and our daughter Anna met in kindergarten and were in middle school together and became firm friends. They played soccer together and were both in Girl Scouts and often stayed at each other's homes. They liked to go downhill skiing occasionally too at Afton Alps, just like their fathers. When the girls were around 13 or 14, Alan suggested a dad and daughter ski trip. And so the 4 of us had not 1, but 2 great ski adventures. And at that age, the girls preferred to ride the lifts together without their dads. And what I learned some years later was that when riding the lifts with the other skiers, they used to make up different names for themselves and claim to hail from California rather than admit they were there with their dorky dads from Minnesota. From Anna Lakesmith. Anne and I were close friends throughout elementary and middle school, and many of my fondest memories with her center around the Maclin's house on Goodrich, which became our personal playground. We would set up scooter courses in the basement and watch movies while walking around on stilts on the third floor, and choreograph dances in the living room, and flip through magazines to take quizzes. Anne always had the best ones, in whichever room she had claimed as hers at the time. I'll always remember Anne for her playful spirit and fearless sense of adventure. From Nancy Lakesmith. We had an old cedar chest that was stuffed full of costumes and interesting accessories that had belonged to my mother in her very young days. Anne and Anna would disappear and become very quiet, except for giggles now and then. And eventually they would emerge to present themselves in their assembled finery from the chest. They were very pleased with themselves, and they looked adorable. From Kira Callahan. I vividly remember we were camping one time and a raccoon crept into our campsite. Anne and I were so scared because Alan and my dad were sleeping, and we weren't quite sure if it was a raccoon or whatever it was, but we all ended up in the same tent, and we just held each other and giggled the night away. And I also remember a trip to New York, and Anne and me and Jean and my mom and all the sleepovers at the Goodrich house, and how much fun we had every time. Almost every memory I have is filled with laughter and happiness. We are gathered here today to celebrate the life of Anne Hall Maclin, whose 33 brief years of living were marked with joy and love and laughter, as well as pain and sadness. It's always considered to be an unbearable grief when parents must mourn the death of a child. It goes against the natural order of things. Unbearable. And yet we bear it. As we bear so many other unbearable truths in our lives. Because the other truth is that Anne has lived and was loved and loved in return. And this is a joy to be celebrated and to be born as well. We've heard about Anne's childhood and how she was such a bright student, athletic and humble and creative and musically talented, playful, witty, determined and courageous. She had a coffee mug that said, "Be a kind human." It's on the table here in the parish hall. I saw it. It made me smile. It's a good reminder. She lived by that motto every day. Be a kind human. We've heard from many people how her laughter and smile were cherished memories, constant reminders, and about how thoughtful and caring she was. And also that Anne was sensitive and her tender heart vulnerable to injury. Anne had a whole life ahead of her when she was young that looked just as one would expect it to do, with the promise of a rewarding career and friends and family. And the car accident that changed her life in 2014 was such a tragedy. Her chronic pain, a challenge that she physically and emotionally tried again and again to overcome. Annie wanted to live and to love and to be loved and to be happy and to be whole. She had a clear and deep understanding of what life meant to her and what she believed. Annie went to Sunday school programs here at Unity Church. Some of you remember her. Some of your children were with her in those classrooms. As a teen in our coming of age program, she wrote a statement of faith, her credo, this message that to me seems to express the essence and longing of her spirit. And even as a teenager, we're fairly well formed by then in who we are. This speaks to who Annie was. And it's a message to all of us gathered here today. So I invite you to listen to Anne's own words. I read this poem for an English project that I recently did, and I immediately understood and identified with the meaning of this poem. It's called Drum by Langston Hughes. Bear in mind that death is a drum, beating forever till the last worms come to answer its call, till the last stars fall, until the last atom is no atom at all, until time is lost and there is no air, and space itself is nothing, nowhere. Death is a drum, a signal drum, calling life to come. Come. Anne writes, you always hear those stories of a person who only has 6 months to live, and they take off time from work and take big risks and spend their time doing what they've always wanted to do. But many people don't know when they're going to die, and they never get to accomplish some of their life goals or go on the crazy adventures they'd always dreamt of. This leads me to ask, why don't we live life to the fullest and take those risks while we are living and have time to do so? I think Langston Hughes is saying this too, in drum, because he has the drum, which represents death, and so uses the drum and death to tell you to live. We can't live in fear and always try to avoid death, because dying is inevitable. So why not live life to its fullest instead of waiting around for those last few months? In drum, Langston Hughes uses the drum, which is constantly beating in the back of your mind, to represent death. Death is always there, and people do the best they can to avoid it. And this can keep them from truly living in the long run. This is why the drum also represents life. It's not telling you to be careful, but it's telling you that death is coming, so you should live. In that sense, death represents life as well. Because if no one died, what would keep them from doing everything they've ever imagined? People are always so cautious when it comes to the fear of death. And they waste their lives trying to hang on to life for as long as they can, but living in fear isn't really living at all. I think that if you take advantage of your life while you have it and take risks, you will have lived life to the fullest. She goes on, when you just sit around and do nothing, you lose so much time that you can never take back. If you live in the moment and do what makes you happiest, you won't have as many regrets when you're facing death. If you never take chances and just try to avoid death and stick to your daily routine, you will have missed out on so much of what you may have wanted to do, things which you will never get to do once it's too late. I believe that you don't get a second chance. You only have one life to live, so live it to the fullest while you still have time on earth. Don't wait until you only have a few months left to live. Start living in every spare second you have. Life is too short to live the same day twice. These are Annie's words. Annie listened to that drum beating, and she lived her life to the fullest that she could. May we do the same. Amen. Will you please rise and join me in singing our hymn, Spirit of Life. Spirit of life, come unto me. Please be seated. Spirit of love, God of mystery, we have gathered in grief and in gladness while holding the wonder of life. This Spirit which endows and animates all that is. May we know your presence in the sorrow and grief that we feel. Remind us of the tender and fragile beauty of our own being, our own living, our own loving, that we may experience life and the beating of the drum with intention and reverence. Be with us, Spirit of love, as a constant companion on our journey, as we remember with gratitude all that Annie's life was, all that she loved, all that she gave us. In these ways and many more, may we know the love that she expressed and reflected and enriched all of our lives. Compassionate Spirit, welcome and hold Annie's precious essence with tender grace and peace and everlasting love. We offer this prayer. We offer this prayer to the Spirit of life, the God of our understanding, named so many ways and nameless. Hold us all. Hold us all with the love that binds us to the living and the love that lives beyond life. Amen. In closing, in benediction, I would like to share again these words that we heard from Jean, from Faith Hill. In my dreams, I'll always see you soar above the sky. In my heart, there'll always be a place for you for all my life. I'll keep a part of you with me. And everywhere I am, there you will be. In the spirit of love we have gathered. In the spirit of love we depart.